Hello and welcome back at Practical Philosophy. It was a long break, but I'm excited for this new video. Do you want to hear how it's all started? Yeah, actually it started a few years ago as I was sitting in university, and then suddenly my teacher said this term which resonated so well with my economic background that it indeed inspired me to start this whole channel. I saved this one for the climax. Here's my video about the invisible kick. Let's jump into it. What is the invisible kick? As you can imagine, it refers to the invisible hand that are described in some depth in the Wonders of Capitalism series. I will link it in the description, but just very briefly, if you aren't familiar with the concept. The idea is that capitalism can use the egoistic motive of the people for the general good. Most people do work because they get money for it, so it's an egoistic motive, but nevertheless, their work creates plenty of products that all of us can enjoy. So in the end we can get our mobile phones just because other people earn money producing them. And we don't need to know anything about farming or cooking to get delicious food on the table. So great, so good. What could possibly be wrong about that? First, as so often, theory is not reality. In reality, consumers don't have all the information they would need to make perfect decisions. So companies can sell products of bad quality because it's hard for consumers to find out. Actually, companies spend a lot of money to paint wrong pictures about their products, and they paid even more money to get those pictures into consumers' heads. All this is called advertisement. The reality, most of the time, looks much uglier. However, imperfect information isn't the biggest problem for the invisible hand. Consumer watchdogs help people to find good products, and after all, companies can't cheat too much since they depend too much on the consumers for their profit. If they go too far beyond what is socially acceptable, consumers would get angry and boycott. So it's one of the time where the benefits for the companies have to be weighted against the risk of being caught and punished. So imperfect information is bad, but it's not the end of the world. The next problem, though, could be the end of the world. It comes with the strange term externalities. Exter what? Yeah, that comes from economics and describes all the things that aren't properly paid for in the economic system. Woo, okay. Doesn't sound too interesting at first, but if you consider that all pollution problems, including climate change, are captured by externalities, it becomes much more scary. Yeah, makes sense though. The companies that cause climate change definitely don't pay enough for it. Otherwise, we would have stopped burning coal several years ago already. But yeah, as it is now, many of us will lose their livelihoods and millions of people will die. I have looked at the problem of climate change in a separate video, so I will not do it here again. But one more thing, the word externalities doesn't really capture the scope of the problem. Let's rather talk about the invisible kick in economic classes. Speaking of which, let's look deeper into the mechanisms. In 2015, it became clear that Volkswagen and other companies were cheating in pollution tests. Nitrogen oxide emissions were far higher than officially claimed. Thus, the car industry was cheating their customers and causing extra externalities, like even more externalities that they would normally cause. However, that is just the beginning. What we saw in the aftermath until today was display of power. While Volkswagen had to pay billions to reimburse US customers, there was no such penalty in Germany. That is because the car industry is crucial for the German economy and they have excellent connections to politics as well as other important institutions. So their lobbying power is just insane. And because of their importance for the economy, treating the car industry badly could actually backfire for politicians. Because, millions would lose their jobs and so on if the car industry goes down. So in the end, only NGOs, consumer watchdogs, and courts were acting, while politicians were kind of doing nothing. Indeed, during the Corona times, the car industry was very close to get another subsidy for their dirty cars. And after all, it was just because of NGO pressure and even economists claiming that such a subsidy doesn't make sense at all, that politicians finally step back from it. However, it's still crazy to see, as it seems that normal rules don't apply to those companies. Small companies must adapt to the political framework. Huge companies, in contrast, that bundle their industry interest, can shape politics to suit their purposes. And they do. I think it's no incident that countries with excellent bicycle infrastructure like Holland and Denmark don't have a big car industry. Another example of this is the destruction of the electric streetcar infrastructure by General Motors in the mid of the 20th century. That time GM was buying streetcar lines and substituting them with buses and cars, which pushed the US, a country with once admirable public transport, towards the car desert that it is today. Okay, at this point you may think, is it only a problem because of a few bad apples, or is there actually more to it? Here's the thing, in capitalism, companies have to make money to survive. Remember my Wonders of Capitalism video number 3? It is like in evolution. Companies that aren't competitive enough will lose market shares and eventually die out. Assuming perfect information and rationality, companies could not afford missing a single opportunity to make more money. Hence, it would be impossible for them to consider anything else except profits, meaning all values would basically go down the drain. Luckily, and that is funny to say, markets don't work that perfect, so companies can afford some inefficiencies like morals. However, whenever values cause conflicts with profits, the system works against environmental protection, human rights, health and happiness. And that is what I call the invisible kick. Well, I could stop here, but let me give you one more example to illustrate the scope of this problem. Imagine a company that somehow isn't restricted by the market logic, totally working outside of the capitalistic system. Imagine this company wants to promote health in the world. What would it do? I think the first priority of this health company would be the global south, where people suffer from bad nutrition, lack of medical care, and insufficient sanitation. Indeed, there's so much to improve and lives to save with relatively little investment that's so, let's say profitable for the society. So the health company would sell and advertise waterless toilets, distribute essential medication, would train doctors, and supporting local agriculture to provide a variety of healthy food. All that could positively impact millions of people. Moreover, this company would invest a lot of money into research to find even better ways to help those people. Malaria, for example, killed 400,000 people in 2018, so it should be an absolute research priority. The list goes on, of course, but to supplement the picture, let's look at the global north, where problems are quite a bit different. In developed countries, people mostly suffer from things like heart disease and diabetes. Millions of people are overweight, which is caused mainly by poor diets. So our company would spend great amounts of money advertising fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans and nuts. If a company would, for example, sell drugs to lower cholesterol, it would always encourage people to try dietary approaches first. So it would basically advertise against their own products. And makes sense, seriously. It's quite stupid to take drugs to lower cholesterol and then at the same time eat a lot of butter, which raises cholesterol again. That's stupid, right? Anyway, that's just my idea about a fictional, non-capitalistic company and what it could do in the health sector. You might have a slightly different approach, that's granted, but let's contrast it with the reality. In capitalism, there is of course no point in investing huge amounts of money in the global south. People can't afford expensive medical care, so this field is largely left to charity. Pharmaceutical companies focus on rich countries with their research and with their marketing. They produce huge amounts of drugs for diseases that could, for the most part, easily dealt with a healthy lifestyle. Yet there's much more money to earn by selling drugs. Indeed, especially permanent conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure and elevated cholesterol create great revenue for those companies, because people have to take the medication for the rest of their life. With just a little bit of sarcasm, I say that the ideal customers for pharma companies are zombie-like people that need a lot of drugs on a daily basis, but they're just healthy enough to stay alive and to keep buying. Luckily for the pharma companies, they enjoy friendly support from the food industry, who is earning big money with processed food that is too sweet, too salty and has too much fat. Look at those corporations. Is any of them specialized in healthy food? No, that's not where the money is. The big ones are specialized in selling empty calories with flavor. The fact that this diet is making people fat actually sweets their companies even more, as fat people need more calories. So if you're overweight, you need more food to sustain that. Just imagine if all people had normal weight, the food industry would lose billions of dollars in the US alone. So they have to keep this market and fight for it the same way the tobacco industry did in the 20th century. They buy science to cast doubt about how unhealthy their products really are. They lobby politicians for subsidies and they get them for cheap corn syrup, etc., etc. And they are bombarding the public with advertisement. Even worse, a lot of this advertisement is targeted at children. All in all, it just creates a toxic food environment that almost all of us are living in. Fair to say, if you're overweight, on several drugs, and wondering where your health is gone, you're probably hit by the invisible kick. Just as many other people that lose their jobs, suddenly don't have access to water, or find their homes destroyed because of climate change. Thanks for watching. As mentioned, this has been a very special one for me. I am open about how to continue this channel from here onwards, so you're welcome to suggest a topic, maybe something that I touched on but haven't discussed yet in detail. Also, I'm interested, how do you like this without music? As always, sources and research recommendations are linked in the descriptions. Cheers, best wishes from Practical Philosophy.